looking at you kids.
Me too.
I wish I knew how to quit eating bugs.
There seems to be fun.
There's no place like home.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Another episode of Gone for the Win, and it's going to be an interesting one. We've got a couple of big news, at least one big news that dropped yesterday, but as well as TIFF roundup. We've also got Dan here. Dan, how's it going?
Oh, it's going great, man. I'll tell you what, we're talking about this is like what good timing to have the show today because of that big news that broke this morning and last night. So I'm excited to get into it.
And also we've got Lewis here. Lewis, how's it going?
Well, it's going pretty good. I mean, again, we're still waiting for like a lot of hot movies, but news-wise, I mean, the last 2 weeks on top of what dropped yesterday, it's been incredibly hot.
But before we sort of get into that, Dan, what have you watched in the past week?
Well, I alluded to it on the last show. I really couldn't say much, but I did get the Continental, all 3 episodes of the Continental, and I'll tell you what, don't listen to the reviews that people are like, poo-pooing on the Continental. I think it's phenomenal. It's a fantastic show. And they're not saying that the reason why they're not liking it is because of Mel Gibson. They're just, and then I'm like, if you don't like it, if you don't dislike it because of Mel Gibson, then you shouldn't dislike it at all because it's freaking amazing. I mean, I friggin' love it. It's Albert Hughes, one of the Hughes brothers that's in charge of it, and the Hughes brothers have been pretty damn good directors over the years. They did, I think, the Book of Eli and From Hell, and a couple other things that I believe they've done. And I love the aesthetic, the 70s aesthetic of it. And it reminds me of when I was a kid and in movies like The French Connection and Taxi Driver, Midnight Cowboy, and all those movies that took place, even a bit of Rocky in there. It just was an amazing, amazing show. My reviews on my website right there from thefourthrow.com. So if people want to read my review of the Continental, it's a 50-year prequel to the John Wick films, and it's amazing as far as I'm concerned. I don't care what other people think. Also, I got a couple Netflix movies that'll be out this week. One of them I was able to drop because the embargo dropped. It's called Reptile with Benicio del Toro, where he plays I think it's upstate New York police detective, and then there's this murder of this real estate agent, and then there's a creepy real estate agent played by Justin Timberlake, and then you got Dominic Lombardozzi, which we all know if you watch Tulsa King with Sylvester Stallone. He's in Tulsa King, but he's also been in like The Wire and some other things. Very good movie, Reptile. But it's one of these movies that you have to keep watching it. It doesn't give you the answers right away. It really is one of these ones that takes a while to get to the end of the movie, but it's worth your wait. That's going to be on Netflix on Friday. So if anybody is interested in Reptile with Benicio del Toro, I recommend that. Also, I don't know if Lewis or anybody saw this out of Sundance, but this is a movie called Fair Play that played at Sundance, and Netflix bought it. And it's just coming out this week on the 29th, but there was a press screening. And so I got a review, and the embargo was this week. So, but because it played at it technically doesn't have an embargo in a way. It's called Fair Play. It's got Alden Ehrenreich, and then it's got Phoebe Dynevor. Now, if you're a fan of Bridgerton, you might know who Phoebe Dynevor is. And then Alden Ehrenreich, obviously, we know from Hail Caesar, Solo, things like that. They play a young couple in New York City, but they're both like marketing executives, and they work for a hedge fund, and their whole job is to try to find different stocks and things and try to make money off them. And their relationship gets in the way of their job because one of them gets a promotion, and things start going south for the relationship. And it's it's pretty rough for one of the people in the relationship, and it kind of is a modern day take on like the Me Too movement, where certain people are getting ahead nowadays, are starting to become more powerful in our society. And I don't want to say too much about it because I don't want to give it away, but very good performances. I would say Alden Ehrenreich is really good, but the one that really you might be on the outside looking in as far as Academy Awards, maybe 7 or 8 or maybe 9, maybe Phoebe Denver for Best Actress. What's his name? Jumping into Best Actress is not good for Phoebe Denver from Killers of the Flower Moon. I forget her name.
Lily Gladstone.
Lily Gladstone jumping into Best Actress does not bode well for Phoebe Denver because nobody wanted to see Gladstone jump into Best Actress. But also, I got the re-education of Molly Singer, which is not very good at all. It's a comedy of a girl who's a lawyer and she has to go back to college and she has to help this kid out to keep her job and all this. Of course, college angst is going on. Not a good movie at all. Also, I can't remember if I talked about it or not. I saw The Expendables 4, which is absolute garbage. Probably one of the worst movies I've seen in a long, long, long time. Probably going to be the worst. I don't do a worst of the year list, so I'll say right now it's probably the worst movie I've seen all year. It's just absolute terror. I mean, Megan Fox is in it, and she's just ridiculous, like ridiculously cast. I mean, had no business being cast in this movie at all. Malcolm, but I said enough. I think I do have one more, and I have to say this one. No One Will Save You. It's a Hulu movie. It's on Hulu right now. Starring Caitlin Dever. It's an alien abduction / alien invasion movie. Only an hour and a half long, but it is incredible. If you got Hulu, I say watch this movie right now. It is fantastic.
I mean, it's not. I don't. Hulu doesn't exist in New Zealand, but it's on Disney Plus, so I'll go watch it right now. Then stop. No, Louisa, what have you seen the past week?
Well, I saw No One Will Save You also, and I seem to be in the minority, but I wasn't as big of a fan. It's got some really cool ideas. So it's not like I don't understand why people are loving it. And I think Caitlin Dever has a great performance in there, undoubtedly great performance. And I just felt like the movie kind of lost me the longer it went. I kind of felt like it started to kind of beat a dead horse. Now, maybe on rewatch, I'll get it more because, like I said, it does really have some cool ideas. So if I get a chance to rewatch it, I might like it more. Another thing that I did see also Expendables 4, and I will back Dan up that it was a piece of garbage. I actually like the Expendables movies of the last 3. I actually did enjoy them. I can't defend this one, though, because clearly this was a cash grab. It doesn't even have anywhere near the top A-list actors or cameos like the other one did. I'm not going to spoil it, but they do something in here that is so ballsy and then basically decide, no, we're not going to do that at the end. And I just felt like I was insulted by them doing that. I didn't know what the point of them doing that was to begin with.
Probably because he was filming something else. Because he was filming something else. I'm not going to say what you're talking about, but that person was probably filming something else. They go, I'll be in this for blah, blah, blah amount of time, and then I'll go do something else. But
yeah, I mean, this movie honestly did not have to exist. If anybody out there does like the previous Expendables movies, but they haven't caught on to this one, just pretend this one doesn't exist because it's really not worth your time. I did also catch what was this else that I caught? I've been doing a little bit of a Halloween binge because, as far as I'm concerned, Halloween season has started for me. I caught the original 1931 Dracula's Daughter from 1936, and from 1943, Son of Dracula. I'm a big fan of the old school Universal monster movie, so I enjoyed that. Since we got Saw 10 coming up, I've begun a Saw binge. I still stick. The first Saw is still one of my favorite horror movies ever. Unfortunately, I'm not as wild about the sequels, and having rewatched the second and third, I still feel that way. We'll see how I feel because I still got the other ones to watch. Maybe I'll like some of them more than I did before in the past because a lot of these I haven't watched in a good while. Um, and yeah, I think that what comes to mind about what I've been checking out of late.
I forgot one, Malcolm. I apologize. I'm under embargo till tomorrow, but I did see The Creator, and it's amazing. It's John David Washington. It's this little girl. It's this like a lone wolf and cub type of story, but it's also really relevant to today's society regarding AI and how we handle AI, and it's also a throwback to the 1970s, to the Vietnam War in a lot of ways. Has a lot of ideas, and some of the ideas are just, I think, above some of the people's heads that have reviewed it already and have talked about it. But I think it's an incredible, incredible movie from Gareth Edwards, and I just think it's one of the best movies of the year, and I love it. Especially the visual effects are just amazing, you know. So I'm under embargo till tomorrow, so that's basically all I can say about that. Also, The Kill Room. I saw The Kill Room, and that's got Uma Thurman, Joe Manganiello, and Samuel Jackson. And it's a story involving art and creating an artist so they can launder money. And it's kind of funny in some ways and entertaining in some ways. It's not the greatest thing, but the idea of what they were going for kind of was fascinating to me. So I kind of give it a mild 3 out of 5 stars for The Kill Room. But maybe other people might like it or other people might not like it. It's called The Kill Room. It's got Uma Thurman, and it's got Maya Hawke in there in a small role as well. So those are ones I forgot to mention before. Not trying to one up you, Lewis, but I just forgot.
No, it's fine.
But anyway, talking about screenings, I've actually got a screening coming up on Sunday. It's Uproar. So that
Uproar.
I'll be seeing that on Sunday. Yeah.
Oh wow!
I've talked about it many times. It's the New Zealand
I know.
movie.
This is fantastic, Malcolm. This is terrific.
And just on a side tangent. I know it's only after 5 reviews, but it is 100% on Rotten Tomato at the moment. So
That's fine. Who cares? Who cares?
But other things I've seen this week. I can't remember what I said last time I was on, but I finally got around to seeing the new Pixar movie Elemental, because it just dropped on Disney Plus either last week or the week before, but I watched it last week, and I enjoyed it. It was pretty good. Like it made the low end of the top 10 Pixar movies for me. But I thought it was cute. I saw Haunting in Venice, and I really loved it. I'm a big fan of the Agatha Christie things, and I thought it was great. Like, and I think the horror aspect really worked for this particular story. And,
Really?
yeah, I just really enjoyed it. Like, it's one of those ones, like, I know a lot of people go, "Oh, it's a horror movie," but without the horror. Like, it's not supposed to be a horror movie. They're not trying to be. It's a murder mystery that's just taking place on Halloween. But and it's one of those ones, like, I do kind of want to watch the story it's based on, because apparently the actual story it's based on, the action unfolds over multiple days. It's not confined to one night like this movie was. But I think they just made it one night for the movie because to just make it more streamlined. Which I think is fine. I think it works for what they did with the movie. I watched a movie called Youth the other day. When we did Paul Dano movies, with Michael Caine and Harvey Keitel, and I thought that was a really good movie. Yeah, but that's I watched a whole bunch of other stuff, but I'm not going to rattle off everything I watched. but yeah, it was just a lot of fun. And the last thing I will say is I've still got about a few minutes left on it, but I finally got around to watching the new Spy Kids movie. And I mean, look, if you grew up with the Spy Kids movies and watched them and enjoyed them, you'll probably get some enjoyment out of this. It's not as good as the original one, but it's fun. It's cute. Like Zachary Levi and Gina Rodriguez actually work together, and I think it was a lot of fun. I think they could. I mean, I would have liked them to try and get some cameos from like I was about to say Diego Luna, but it's not the
original kids.
what's the original kids.
Yeah.
I know it's Alexa Vega or Pena Vega as she's known now. I can't remember what the Journey's name is. I know he's married to Megan Trainor at the moment, but yeah, I would have liked to get some cameos from them in there, but
I actually, not to cut you off, Malcolm, but I actually forgot to mention that I also saw the new Spy Kids, and I mean, I can't say I was crazy about it, but I will say I don't think it was as bad as I thought it was going to be either.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like, because they made it be like this whole reboot. It's like, it's also one of those ones like it worked for what it is. Like it's like the Spy Kids movies are meant to be like movies that kids can enjoy. They're not meant for us grown-ass adults, and but for what it is, it's fun. Definitely better than the All the Time in the World and that we had a few years ago. That's for sure. But that sort of is what we've seen in the past week. I'm going to just lead off with this one because I'll finish off on TIFF. So yesterday, it was announced that WGA and AMTP have come to a tentative agreement. They've still got to get it all ratified, and the girls that have to vote on it. That the strike's not over yet because SAG still have to get their deal now, and WGA still has to ratify everything. But one thing that is clear, like although apparently I don't know how this works because like the WGA have said they're essentially still on strike for now and to be in solidarity with with SAG, but they're not going to be picketing anymore. But then seconds after that, there's been news about all these late night talk shows and that making plans to come back, and all that, which I think is rushing it because one, you still won't be able to get actors on to promote stuff, and two, the weirdest one is apparently Saturday Night Live is looking to come back, but they're going to have non-acting hosts. So it's like, well, your cast members act, so it's like, are they not covered by SAG? Or I don't know, but anyway, Dan, what are your thoughts about WGA and AMTP finally coming to a deal?
Yeah, I've been saying it all along that I thought the writers would come to the table first, but the fact of the matter is, you knew these guys were going to have to get back going because it was going to be like no fall movies or no fall TV shows and getting anything, and we're going to be getting a whole year full of reality shows if these guys didn't get back to the table. Apparently, there was like 5 days in a row where they went to the studio heads and the writers went to this specific location and hammered this thing out. And like you said, they do have to ratify it so that everybody's got to vote, and they have to have 50% in one vote to ratify it, which from what I'm hearing is a very feasible amount. And I'm hearing that it's going to happen, that there's almost no chance that this won't happen, that both sides have gotten things that they wanted. And one of the things that I've been saying all along is that the studios are not going to budge on residuals. And what happened? They're not budging on residuals. They're not going to give writers residuals on streaming shows. And I knew it. I knew it was going to happen. But one of the big things is AI, which I'm glad that kind of, I mean, nobody wants stuff written by computers. What a bunch of crock of shit. I mean, you take the personal element out of writing when you have computers writing crap. That's, they don't know people's personal stories, or they can't put a personal touch on a script or a story. You know what I mean? I mean, and then they can't get the humor of like you said, talk shows or comedy sitcoms or whatever. You know what I mean? So I'm glad that was something that the studios were like, yeah, don't worry about that, man. We ain't gonna freaking mess around with AI and all that crap. And the things that obviously everybody budged a little bit to get to the point where they are, but the big one to me is residuals, and I knew the studios would not go crazy on residuals, but it's based on like these massive amounts of views, and now they're going to give quarterly updates on views and shit like that. Like Netflix will get quarterly updates, and if something, say, we'll just use this as an example, Wednesday gets ridiculous amounts of clicks, maybe the writers' residuals would go up a little bit or something like that. But that's it. They're not going to go nuts with residuals. The Netflix and Max and Disney Plus and all these guys. And even though Ted Sarandos was in there, Amazon was good for a while. They didn't even have to freaking get involved in this if they didn't want to. They would have been good for quite a while. Apple would have been good for quite a while. But they did come to the table, and the studios realized that the writers getting these shows written, getting these talk shows, getting these various like Dancing with the Stars, which had one writer or whatever. They had 500 people on their staff with one writer, and they had to get this one writer back so they could do Dancing with the Stars. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're going to take 499 people and not put them to work over one writer? Give me a break, But so I'm glad. I knew this needed to happen, and I knew it was going to happen sooner than the acting one. The acting one is going to be a hell of a lot harder. People seem to think that within 2 weeks the SAG one's going to collapse as well. They're going to come to the table and sign. I think it's not going to happen, but that's just me, but I'm not as much of an insider as some of those people in New York and LA are. So we'll see.
I will just sort of correct you on one thing. We don't know the specifics of what's in the contract until it's written up. Like, they haven't really sort of.
Well, some stuff has come out on that, Malcolm.
I'm just saying. I think it's one of those ones. I think we have to sort of wait till at least the WGA sort of say themselves sort of what there, because
you're right.
Things can come out in deadline there, but that's all covered by the AMPTP, and I think it's one of those ones. And because it's one of those ones that, like, if what was said about the residuals specifically is correct, they must have changed something in there to entice the WGA. So they've probably done some tweaking in their contracts for them. Because I think that's definitely one of the big things that WGA was never going to sort of budge too much on. So there must be some kind of tweaking there that entice them to accept it with there. But anyway, Louis, what are your thoughts about WGA and AMTP coming to the table?
Well, I mean, I thought something was up when supposedly the CEOs personally got involved and came to the table. So I knew that something was up there. I did wonder because supposedly the strategy that the studios were going to use was basically sort of like freeze out the writers. I think what ended up happening is they kind of blew back on them, because I think at a certain point when they started to realize that WGA was not really going to budge. Well, they were never going to get 100% what they wanted. That's not how this ever works. The point is to negotiate higher and eventually settle for something that puts you in a better position than you were. And I think what happened, but I think what also happened is that when they started realizing how serious WGA was about some of these things, I wouldn't be surprised if some desperation started to happen there for the studios as well. I wouldn't be surprised if they got together and made the decision, the CEOs, that, well, we really got to figure out this writers thing before we can even have any chance to figure out the actors. So in terms of the this situation about hosts getting back to work now, I mean, I think you made a good point, Malcolm. Like, if these actors are still not going to be participating because they're striking, I don't know who the heck they're going to get to come on to the show because it's not like writers get involved in the promotion unless they're like director writers or something like that. They don't get involved in the
Director actors.
promotion.
Like Taika Waititi, for example.
Yeah,
Yeah.
unless you like Taika or you see Marty's out there doing Killers of the Flower Moon because he's a director. He's not an actor. He's not an actor with this movie. He has acted before, but like I mean, I think I saw that if you watch some of these morning shows, they haven't had actors on; they've had musicians mostly on. So I
Yeah.
mean, is that what they're going to do? So it's going to be very
Authors.
interesting. Yeah, or authors and stuff like that. So it's going to be interesting, and I do wonder if there was some of the panic that was setting was the fact that the box office hasn't been the hottest lately, and maybe that has made them kind of like made some of the studios kind of freak out a bit as well. Now I don't know how much you can attribute that to the writers because as important as the writers are, it's not like they're the face. Again, they're not the face of the marketing of a movie. But I do wonder that if the studios just said the only way we're going to finally be able to have any chance to make a deal with these actors is to if we finally figure out what's going to happen here with the writers. And I think that's what you saw happen. And again, anybody who thought the writers were going to get 100% of what they wanted is nuts because that's not how this ever works. But I do believe that they probably, again, we have to wait to see what the language is. I do believe that they definitely got some things that completely changed certain practices in the industry. Um, and I will say that even though I do think we have to be careful because it hasn't been official, if I had to make a prediction, I think it's probably likely that they will vote to pass this. Now, maybe I'll get egg on my face and they'll actually vote against it, but I do feel optimistic that they will vote to pass this.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's one of those ones like from what I've heard from like that people in the know that are part of the WGA and sort of get those regular emails and stuff like that. From what I've heard is like this contract, that they get there's a lot of meaningful gains for everyone in the writing industry. So I think it's one of those ones like to use those terminology. I think they're positive that it's going to be accepted. I can't but if it's got meaningful gains and all that, I can't see why it wouldn't. And it, um, so it's definitely one of those ones. But I think the big thing is, and I think it's why they chose to do the writers first is one. The writers have been on strike for longer than the actors as it is. But so it's probably a case of they realize like, shit. So with everything that we've sort of got written that's in production at the moment, it's like we're gonna need more stuff written before we can sort of get anything more greenlit. So it's like so they're gonna need the writers first because I mean, a lot of the actors in projects that it's currently filming or were filming before the actors went on strike. But and it's one of those ones like I think now the AMTP will start their negotiation process with SAG, and I think it's also one of those ones. I think they want to deal with one organization at a time as well. It's like there's no point trying to to negotiate with both at the same time when there's probably stuff that the actors want that don't really apply for the writers. And so I think they do have a lot of crossover and stuff, but I think there's stuff specific actors that they probably do. So they're probably think, well, we'll deal with one at a time, and yeah. Because I mean,
Good. Malcolm.
yeah, no, and it's the other things like from what I've heard, like funny enough, the big thing that the studios were not wanting to do for the longest time it's actually not the residuals one the studios weren't budging on for the longest time. It was AI. There was that whole AI protection thing that the studios were really not wanting to talk about at all. So it's like they realized, well, we're going to have to deal with it if we want any hope in this. Like, and because I mean, like even though like Deadline and Hollywood Reporter, all the reporting things from like the AMPTP controlled publications, we're sort of going, oh yeah, it's the writers that aren't coming to the table. They were the ones holding out for the longest time. They like WGA was saying we've not heard from the AMPTP in all this time. So
Yeah. I mean, this thing has been going on for so long. Why couldn't they? Why couldn't they have done this sooner? Why did it have to wait till the deadline, 5 days before the deadline, before they started coming to the table? Supposedly, the directors had been negotiating for a year leading up to the deadline. That's why the directors never went on strike, because they had been working with them to come to a conclusion on what they wanted, and that's why the directors never went on strike. But the writers, the studios never went and tried to negotiate with the writers or the actors, and so then everybody started coming to the table at the last minute, and then they couldn't come to a thing, and that's why it went as long as it did. And that they had put this day down that day. Somebody said something about Yom Kippur, like Yom Kippur was going to be a big day. I guess there's a lot of Jewish writers or something, and that was going to be like the big day that they did not want to cross that day or something, and the studios had to come to a conclusion. They were either going to stop negotiating with the writers on Sunday, or they had to come to some kind of a deal by Sunday. That was interesting from what I heard, what I've been hearing.
Well, I mean, I don't know so much if it was because of Yom Kippur in that. And I mean, I'm not Jewish, so I don't. But this is
neither.
I mean, this is what something I saw on Twitter. There's Roxy Stryer kind of said it on one of her tweets. Like, of course, they make this the deal and this good come to this agreement like on Yom Kippur, a day where Jewish people can't celebrate or drink or this. So, it was something to that effect. By the time I would have brought up that tweet and screenshotted it and put it there, but it was and I know Roxy
Jewish writers or something like that. I don't know.
Oh, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of Jewish people in Hollywood in general.
Yeah, or Hollywood. Yeah, you're right.
But yeah, but apparently like the day of Yom Kippur is like they can't drink alcohol or anything. I think I've got that right. I don't know. I'm not going to try and pretend I know. I'm not going to. But yeah,
it's like Christmas or something for them, right? It's like some massive holiday for Jewish people.
Something
well,
like
yes,
that.
but if Malcolm's right, and I think he might be right, the difference is that they can't like celebrate,
Yeah, I was only going by what Roxy Stryer was saying in her tweet, or X, with whatever.
Hopefully, we hear something Friday from Scott Manson, Perry, and Jeff Snyder. Maybe they'll be able to shed some more light, because Jeff is Jewish, Scott is Jewish. I think Perry might be Jewish, or maybe those guys might have something to say about that. If I don't know, don't quote me on this.
Well,
but I'd be interested to see if they had something to say on this on Friday. Hopefully, we get an episode of for your consideration this week. We haven't had an episode in 3 weeks.
But yeah, I mean it. But yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, here it is. So Roxy's tweet was WGA and AMPTP reached an agreement on Yom Kippur, a day where we can't eat, drink, or have sex to celebrate. If that's not proof that Jews don't run Hollywood, I don't know what is. But yeah, but moving on, it's going to be interesting because it's definitely a positive step, and I think because the AMPT will probably use this model now as the basis for what they're going to sort of talk to the actors about, and I mean, like at best, I'd say like we might like everything might kind of be back to normal by end of October is kind of going to be my guess at this stage. I don't know. I'm not saying it's going to be the case at all. But I just think that's the likelihood of what's going to happen now.
Well, I'll tell you what, Malcolm.
And
If that's the case, that is a win for everybody because I didn't think this thing was going to end for months for the acting side.
I mean, it really did. Like, same here. I was the case. Like, I didn't think we were going to get anything. By the, but yeah, I mean, it's definitely one of those ones. Like, as soon as like it came out that WGA and AMPTP we're talking like daily talks. Like, yeah, something's going to happen soon with the WGA. Like, there's no way you have talks daily and nothing happens. But
you got anything on this before we move on?
Was that so?
Lewis, you got anything on this before we move on?
No, I mean the only thing that I can think of is that I think maybe the studios had a certain strategy in terms of like again kind of freezing the writers out. And I think at the end of the day they ended up blinking first instead of the writers because at a certain point I think they just the reality of how long this could go and how could it affect. I mean we got to the point where it started affecting award season. I mean I see some people are making some ridiculous dream scenarios in their head of let's bring Dune back, but what they don't understand is that it takes a little bit. It's going to take a little bit more than that to get Dune to suddenly come back into the calendar. As much as I would love for it to come back to the calendar, I don't think that's happening. But yeah, I just think I really do wonder how much of it was the realization that there was no way they were going to get to have any time to deal with the actors until they finally figured out this situation with the writers, because there is some crossover because the actors are also concerned about the use of AI. So
and it's ad-libbing too. We forget about ad-libbing. You know, we talked, Malcolm, him and I were talking about Deadpool, where Ryan Reynolds is worried about ad-libbing it now with the writers back, you can fix those things in the Deadpool script where then you can do the ad-libbing as an actor. But you have to get the script fixed before you can just go out there and just add an ad-lib stuff. So I think it's the smart move is to get the writers first and then work on getting the actors.
Yeah. Or to just quickly bounce off that, from what I've heard, is the Deadpool script was actually pretty much finished. It was just a case of the reason everyone is upset because Ryan was they were continuing filming it when WGA initially went on strike was because of Ryan's thing of how he likes ad-libbing. So now, like, once they sort out the thing with the actors and they get back on film, they can probably they'll most likely reshoot some of those scenes or whatnot, and all that. And it's one of those ones like just to use the Dune examples, for all we know, there could have been other reasons for why they moved Dune.
They have nothing. Warner Brothers has nothing for next year. They're out of projects for next year. They didn't have to put something next year, or they weren't going to have anything, Malcolm.
And I think there's an underrated possibility. Not predicting it. I think there's an underrated possibility that even Color Purple gets delayed until next year because there was a story out there that they need the actors to do some ADR work, and obviously the actors aren't working at the moment.
Yeah, well, that's actually where I was going with Dune is like maybe there's some post-production thing that they needed the actors for, or they decided they needed reshoots. Like maybe there's something that they need to do post-production they just couldn't while the actors were on strike. So it's like, so that's also probably why it's not so much that Warner Brothers didn't really have anything for next year. I think it was a case of maybe there was other like post-production work that they needed to do on Dune. So yeah, and I mean it's one of those ones like Calipari and Wonka, I don't think they're completely out of the like woods
Yeah.
yet.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not out of the woods yet. You're right, Malcolm. They have a chance to stick around. David Zaslav could pull them if they don't settle with the actors, though.
I mean, and well, I was just going to mention, like, and the fact that is where you look at where they are on the schedule now, there's just something that doesn't seem right to me about how closely together they are. I feel like that's still very much potentially in flux.
And Aquaman was right there too. They had all three of them coming out within 3 weeks of each other.
Yeah, that there's something about it that doesn't seem right to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's I think it's one of those ones. I think at this point, more of us don't really care about Aquaman. I think Aquaman can stay for all of it.
I think they moved it though. I think they already moved Aquaman, didn't they?
No,
it's still set for December.
Oh, is it? Okay.
They finally and not that we're going to talk about it, but they finally did release the trailer last week.
Yeah, I saw the trailer, but I thought that something came out that they moved it to next summer. That's all. All right.
I think they were talking about. I think they were saying that Aquaman and it was about the time when they were talking about the possibility of moving Dunes, like the Aquaman 2, Calipari and Wonka all look kind of in that same thing.
I mean, they seem dead set on releasing Aquaman. I think they're just honestly ready to just kind of get it over, because this movie's been delayed before, I believe, and I think they're just trying to like just get it out there already. But to me, like I said, I think there's something about that where Wonka and Color Purple are that doesn't sit right with me. I think those are potentially could still, if not both, at least one of those two could potentially get delayed until next year.
Yeah, I mean, if you're right.
Plus, they already have Barbie as their awards movie. You know what I mean? That they're going to push for awards. You know.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, they always have that, and then if they push Color Purple, then you got two movies there in Dune 2 and Color Purple that they could potentially campaign if they do push it to next year.
Yeah.
Right. And it's one of those ones like once get back to it. From what I've heard, is that I think they don't plan on going back to work until at least. Well, and I've heard two reports, both from WGA kind of reputable people. Like I've heard talks that that they're not going to go back to work until SAG gets their deal, or they're not going to go back to work until it's ratified. I think it's the ratification, which is probably the one I'll lean to, but that's up. Everything's up in the air at the moment, but it's definitely going in a positive direction. But moving on to,
go ahead.
What was that, Dan?
No. I agree. I agree with what you were saying. I was just letting you know.
But moving on to something a lot more positive, and more set in stone. We had TIFF just recently that wrapped up last week or the week before last. I think it was early on last week, because it wasn't too long after the last show. But TIFF wrapped up, and we got some announcements of awards and that. So I'm just going to take them as a segment. So the People's Choice Award went to American Fiction, and then the two runners up for People's Choice Awards was The Holdover and The Boy and the Heron. But so Dan, what are your thoughts about American Fiction getting the People's Choice Award, and then The Holdovers and The Boy and the Heron getting really high praise as well?
Well, I only have certain people I can go off of, and people's reviews that I can go off of, and I found that people are saying that American Fiction is kind of divisive, and that it's not like the greatest thing, and that people kind of were not real happy that it won TIFF, and that the people that really, I mean, they had a better kind of an idea of that they thought the movie that had a better kind of, and if you go back and look at Toronto, they've had more of a cheery kind of uplifting movie win in the past. and that's what the Holdovers was, and that they were kind of like, why did this American Fiction win? And then nobody was talking about American Fiction, and now all of a sudden now this one's Toronto, and this thing now everybody's like, oh, what are the chances of American Fiction, and this and that and the other, and I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about American Fiction. I want to talk about the Holdovers, and I'm not bashing American Fiction. I'm not sitting here and I'm not bashing American Fiction. But I just don't understand why these guys have to go against the grain and vote for something that nobody. Now, I'm not saying nobody liked, but it's a divisive film that kind of is not the most Toronto-y kind of movie, and where the Holdovers is more of a Toronto Film Festival type of movie, more of a cheery kind of uplifting movie with a couple great performances from what I have gathered from Paul Giamatti and Divine Joy Randolph. And I mean, The Boy and the Heron, it's Miyazaki. It's going to now be in the animated race. We know it's basically locked for one of those 5 spots for the animated. If it comes out this year, it's got to come out this year, so it can get that qualifying run. It has to find a distributor. I think I heard that it had gotten a distributor. I don't know for sure, but then I heard that it didn't get a distributor. So that's going to be a major factor on The Boy and the Heron. But the Holdovers has got to, we all know it's Searchlight, it's Focus Features. And the fact of the matter is Focus has not been very good with the critics in my state where I live, and they haven't been giving me good screeners at all. We know it's going to come out on Peacock, but I don't want to wait 2 months for it to come to Peacock. I want it now when we could see it and then we could talk about it. I'm sick and tired of Focus dicking us around. Maybe because it did so well at Toronto and finished second. Maybe they'll say, all right, let's do screenings all over the place for the Holdover since it did so well and it's getting such a good word of mouth out of Toronto. So come on, Focus, get your head out of your ass and give us press people this movie so we could see it. And if I see American Fiction and I like it, I might change my mind on that. I'm just going off of some of the stuff people that I heard that did see it out of Toronto that are it's kind of divisive. So there you go.
But Luis, what are your thoughts about American Fiction getting the People's Choice Awards and the Holdovers and Boy and the Heron being 2 runners up?
Well, going from 3 to 1, Boy and the Heron doesn't surprise me that it plays. I believe it was the one that actually had the most screenings, and that made me think that it was probably going to place anyway. In terms of it finding a distributor, I hope what happens to it isn't what happened to Bell, which from back in 2021, where that got a distributor, and then the distributor didn't really come out with it until super late. And it was easily forgotten about. But that being said, this is a Miyazaki film. I know there were some people who thought that this could be a picture player. I don't think it's a picture player, but because I believe it's the first ever animated movie to place for Audience Award at TIFF. To me, it potentially could be the one movie that could beat Spider-Verse. Now, I still think Spider-Verse is the favorite to win animated feature, but the fact that it did place, I think, is a big deal for its chances to potentially upset Spider-Verse. Holdovers, what's interesting about Holdovers is that, and by the way, Dan's right, Focus Features is horrible down here. I think last year when they were pushing Tar, the best they could do for us was, I think they tried to send us some free tickets. They didn't even do a formal screening. Yep. And then they finally gave us a physical screener pretty super late. So Focus Features hasn't been the greatest down here in pushing their stuff. But, what's interesting to me is because I thought the Holdovers is going to be this year's Green Book, Belfast, King's Speech, that feel-good movie that the critics are okay on. It becomes this big film Twitter villain because they claim the movie's too nice or whatever. And then the audiences really react well to it. The Academy reacts well to it. Even Belfast, which ended up sort of like losing steam and getting taken over by Gold, still escaped with an Oscar. I thought it was going to be that movie, and the interesting thing to me about it is that the critics that I followed that were in that camp of movies like Green Book or Belfast or King's Speech are too nice. They themselves have actually been giving this movie really good reviews, which I found surprising and interesting. And I honestly think that at this moment, personally, I would say that this is a top 5 picture contender at the moment, because if it could catch on and do on a preferential, and now that Lily Gladstone has moved out of the supporting actress race, Divine Joy Randolph, if she wins supporting actress and this can pull off an original screenplay win, that's a path to a picture win, even if you lose
Best
director.
Actor nomination and a Best Actor nomination for Paul Giamatti, who's overdue for a Best Actor.
Yeah, and by the way, not a crazy. I'm not predicting this, but I would not be surprised if when we get to the industry, all of a sudden the industry voters decide, no, we're going to give Giamatti the Oscar. I think Holdovers is a major player. In terms of American Fiction, I'm gonna disagree with Dan to some extent. That I think it's exciting that a movie that honestly was not really on anyone's radar kind of came on and suddenly won. Now, I haven't heard from other people that it's divisive. What I've actually heard is that it's a big crowd pleaser, that there's a lot of comedy in it. I know it's supposed to be like a satire about black art and such. And it would be very interesting to me if this movie, because I still wonder if there's a small movie that can suddenly surge and become a major player for picture, if this movie could be that small movie that suddenly surges, because it's got that director that's never had a movie in picture, and lately we've seen that kind of movie take off with the Academy. And it is interesting to me that MGM pushed it back. I think it was supposed to come out in November, and now it's coming out in December. So they're clearly going to seeing this as a potential player. That being said, I think this is the first time since 2019 that the Audience Award winner at TIFF doesn't leave the festival like the front runner to win it all. So it's been a while that we've been in this position. I personally, at the moment, would not put American Picture in my predicted 10, but I do think it's on the bubble. And if what I've heard from other people that it is a crowd pleaser, that there is a comedic aspect to it, if it becomes a hit with audiences, I can see it becoming MGM's priority over Saltburn, because while I've heard good things about Saltburn, I've also heard that it's divisive and that it's got certain content in it that might turn off some of the older Academy voters. So it's going to be interesting to me to see if American Fiction will be the first in a while that's the Audience Award winner that doesn't get a Best Picture nomination, or if it does get into the picture race. Because if it does get into the picture race, and if what I hear from others is right, that it's got comedic aspects in it and that it's a crowd pleaser and it's got the passion behind it, I would be very interested to see if it's that small movie that kind of comes out of nowhere. It's a dark horse, and before you know it, it's like right in the thick of it. Not predicting it, just saying I would want to keep an eye out on that, given that it did come out of nowhere and won the TIFF Audience Award.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely interesting. Like, I don't know much about any of these movies, and I think it's one of those ones. I think, not that I'm saying the audiences planned it like this, but like the audiences may have gone there like, well, the Holdovers is probably going to get some Oscar love, and that, but let's try and push this movie we really like and have that win people's choice, and then maybe it'll put it on the radar of Oscar voters. So not that I'm saying that the audience kind of strategically voted for the American Fiction to get people's choice, but I think now that it has gotten people's choice, I think it's going to get maybe more attention because of it.
Well, I mean, like everyone and their mom seemed to think that Holdovers was locked in for a win. So that might have led to some people being like, I really liked Holdovers, but it's going to win anyway, so I'm going to vote for American Fiction.
Yeah, but yeah, it's so it's definitely interesting. Like, but yeah, and I mean, it's one of those ones like with 10, like straight 10, like nominations in Best Picture. Like, I could like if Boy in the Heron it does get released, I think there is I think the fact that it's finished in the top 3 and with it being Miyazaki, I think there's a slight chance that it could sneak into there. I'm not like 100% ready to completely be on board of that.
But if it were to try to get in there, I would have to imagine that if an animated movie is going to get into a picture, it has to be like a very clear favorite to win animated feature.
Oh, I mean, it's like yes and no. I mean, it's one of those ones like because I think it's because I think not that I've not that I don't think it's with any of the animated movies that have snuck that got into best animated. Because I think the ones that have gotten into there have won. Well, the ones that won best animated, like Toy Story 3 and Up, I think are the only two. So, but but I mean, it's one of those ones like anything is possible. Like the Oscar voters may think like The Boy and the Heron is a really good movie, but they may, for whatever reason, they may not think it's necessarily the best animated movie. Which is weird to think that, but it's also never happened before either. So there's really no correlation with that yet, because when Beauty and the Beast was nominated in Best Picture, like they didn't have a Best Animated Feature to go
Right.
off of. So yeah.
But if Boy and the Heron gets in, that'd be historic because first of all, it'd be the first anime film to get into if it got into picture.
But yeah, but moving on to the documentary side, like the People's Choice Award for documentaries went to Mr. Dress-Up: The Magic of Make Believe. The first one up was Summer Camp spelled for Q, and then the second runner up was Mountain Queen: The Summits of Lakpa Sherpa. I probably butchered that thing, but Louis, what are your thoughts about the documentary People's Choice Awards and one was up?
I mean, I gotta be honest. I didn't really know these documentaries existed. I mean, I would like to check them out, but I can't say that any of those like popped up to me as like certain ones that I've been hearing about throughout the year. I think I heard what is it that what the dress up one or something.
Mr. Dress-Up:
Yeah,
The Magic.
I think I vaguely heard from some folks who were at TIFF that's actually like a really fun sort of crowd pleaser. So it would be interesting to see if that could get into the race because, as I've talked about before, when we were covering how Navalny ended up surging past like oh my god, what was it? You and me really liked it, Dan. The Big Critic documentary winner last year. About the Saxlers and the.
blood and
Oh, the Beauty and the Bloodshed.
Oh
yeah,
God.
but Navalny I think ended up being more for crowd pleaser. So if it would be interesting if this movie is what I hear about that it's a really fun documentary and everything. It would be interesting to see if it getting the race and kind of surge over something like say Beyond Utopia, which I would imagine Beyond Utopia is going to be a much more serious subject matter.
That finally did get distribution with Roadside Attraction. So we are going to get Beyond Utopia this year, and that will be the front runner once people start seeing it. But I think not to interrupt you, Louis, but like Dick Johnson is dead, like something like that. Is that what you're kind of like kind of a funny movie that has like a funny premise?
Yeah, but I mean, if I remember, didn't Dick Johnson get snubbed for a nomination?
Yeah, it's kind of what you're talking about, like a funny documentary premise. Well, I saw one that was fantastic about this this guy who was scammed, and this Asian guy from Orlando who was scammed. That was kind of a funny one too. But
Oh
I know,
yes, I saw that one also. They sent us a screener for that. Yeah.
yeah, that was. But so in the same vein is like a comedic documentary kind of thing, right?
Well, yeah. Well, I mean, I'm not sure how comedic it is, but I heard it's the kind that you
Okay.
leave with a smile on your face.
Oh,
So
okay.
to me, it's like Beyond Utopia is easily the current front runner. But what would worry me about his chances if you're rooting for it is that we've seen this before, where the serious documentary suddenly loses at when we come to Oscar time to something a little bit more crowd friendly, like My Octopus Teacher. And then, of course, you have, I mean, like, Summer Soul dominated that whole season, but Summer Soul was a crowd pleaser. So I would be interesting to see if this does get into race, if it could potentially be the one that sort of upsets Beyond Utopia. But then, of course, there's the documentary. We've seen this all over. The documentary gets your inevitably. There's going to be one what the heck snub.
Yeah, or two or three.
Yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know what the heck is up with the documentary branch. Yeah.
So just for fun, I decided to sort of actually see what has won like the People's Choice for documentary at TIFF over the past few years. Last year's one was a movie called Black Eyes, and then the two
Black
runner
Eyes, I saw it this summer. Phenomenal.
None of those three were nominated at the Oscar. Then the year before that, The Rescue was People's Choice.
Oh God.
With
Yeah,
Diane Warwick and Don't Make Me Over and Flea being the two runners up. Out of those three, I think Flea was The Rescue nominated that year?
No, that was the big snub of that year. Yeah.
Yeah. So
And
out of
Flea
those
got into
three,
three categories.
yes, out of those three, Flea was the only one that got nominated. In 2020 was documentary called Inconvenient Indian. And because it was COVID, they didn't have any runners up. The year before that, The Cave was People's Choice, with I'm Not Alone and Dad's being the two runners up. In 2018, Free Solo was the People's Choice, and that was nominated. The two runners up. This changes even the biggest sort of So yeah, like out of the last few years, like the one that has won People's Choice, like, is not guaranteed to sort of be nominated at the Oscars. So like it's going to be interesting to see if if that trend continues this time around. But Dan, what are your thoughts about the nominations for the People's Choice for documentaries?
Yeah, I'm kind of with Lewis here on this one. I don't know these movies, but then again, I didn't know some of the movies like Black Ice last year. I didn't know it, but then I saw it this summer, and it blew me away. You know, I saw three massive documentaries this summer, back to back to back, like within like the same weekend of each other, and I was like, oh my God, I can't believe I had this opportunity to see these three massive docs this summer, and those are going to be three of my favorites of the year. So. And one of them is in my top 10 of the year as of right now. I forget what it is. Right, for the life of me, my memory is not working for me. But yeah, I don't know a whole lot about these, Malcolm. So I really don't have a lot to say.
Yeah, I'm not big on documentaries either. I've not heard of these. But I did just because I felt like I did look up Mr. Dress Up, see what it's about. Apparently it's sounds like it's going to be like in the same vein as Won't You Be My Neighbor in a way. And it because it's a documentary about a Canadian children's show host. And it talks about his career and his impact on Canadian culture and all that. So so in a way it's kind of going to be kind of like Won't You Be My Neighbor, where they're talking about Fred Rogers, but this is the Canadian version of it from the sounds of it. So it's going to be interesting to see if this one gets love when Won't You Be My Neighbor was. But yeah, moving on to ones that I don't think will have any impact when it comes to Oscar season. Maybe one I'll get into that when on to about them. But the People's Choice Awards for Madness, I think they maybe do these Midnight Madnessy things, which is like all these wacky things. But the People's Choice Award for Midnight Madness went to Dix the Musical. And then the two runners up was a movie called Kill Kill and Hell of a Summer. Which by the looks of it is the Finn Wolfhard directed movie. Then I'll just sort of lead off here. Dix the Musical looks like a whole lot of fun. I don't think it's going to get much. I mean, it's in the first A24 musical. I don't think it's going to get a lot of love at the Oscars. But if the songs are good, I could maybe seeing that could be potentially maybe being another one that could upset Best Original Song because if it gets nominated anywhere, that if Best Original Song is probably the case, and just like my year of Dix, I really want to hear someone at the Oscars go Dix the musical. But, Dan, what are your thoughts about the People's Choice Awards, Midnight Madness?
Well, I don't have a lot to say about this, but rumor has it, don't quote me, we tend to get A24 screenings, which is unlike Focus. We have had a lot of good luck with A24, and if we don't get them in a screen as a screening, we do get screeners at the end of the year. So we are going to get Dix the Musical, and we're going to have to watch it, and we're going to see if it's any good. But like, this seems to be the year of wacky songs. I mean, can you imagine 80 for Brady and 4 wacky ass songs in there? And then 80 for Brady wins because it's the most straightforward song of all these, like Dix the Musical, the Ken song, Peaches, and all these crazy ass songs. Wouldn't that be, or you might get one song from The Color Purple, but if The Color Purple moves, then you don't get any songs from The Color Purple, and then you might end with 4 wacky songs. And
you've got Wish coming out as well, which is most likely going to get a song in there as well.
Wish, yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're right. I'm not discounting Wish and Song. Don't think I'm discounting it now.
Oh, I wasn't.
Yeah,
I was just saying.
I've heard some interesting stuff. Yeah, no, I know. Friends of mine have seen it and they liked it, but it's not like for everybody from what I have heard. And Lewis and I will probably see it here pretty soon because there's a good chance we might be getting it sometime, maybe this month. If we do get it.
Well, Dix comes out next week, so you would have to get it sometime between now and next week.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It's training.
Yeah,
I mean, at the very least, it will come with all those A24 screeners they give us. So
yeah, we'll get that bundle and it'll come in there if we don't get a screening. Because it's a lot of talk of us getting a screening of it, though, Lewis.
But Lewis, what are your thoughts about all these the People's Choice Awards for the Midnight Madness?
Yeah, I'm not surprised Dix the Musical won. I think that I've been hearing that a lot of people had a lot of fun with it, but I have also heard that it's not necessarily for everybody. Of course, there's a certain crowd that would even show up to these Midnight Madness movies. That KILL, I think it's called, the number 2 movie. I heard that that's kind of like a crazy sort of action film. I don't know all the details about it. I don't think I've heard much about that third film, but it'll be interesting. Dix the Musical. I've heard that movie's freaking wild.
Yeah, I mean it definitely sounds interesting because you got Nathan Lane sort of coming back into the spotlight a little bit. And then it sounds like it's a wacky version of the Parent Trap. Is like it's 2 business adversaries who realize they're twin brothers that they decide to switch places to reunite their divorced parents so they can become an actual family. And it's like so it just sounds wacky and interesting, and the trailer just has me hyped for it completely. But yeah. But moving on,
and I heard, you want to talk about some wild theories? Nathan Lane, not because we're not going to get into this week. for Best Supporting Actor for Beau is Afraid. People were talking about that. I'm like,
I don't know about that. No, I don't know.
That's what I said. I said,
I mean, it might be a cool nomination. I mean, to see Nathan Lane at the Oscars and everything, but I mean, that movie, I just think there's going to be a lot of Academy voters that aren't going to.
Well, I mean, I think it's one of those ones. I think depending on how well the Academy reacts to Dick's the Musical, I think they could like it could be more of a chance for Nathan Lane to get nominated for Dick's the Musical than Beau's Afraid. Both
also,
of which
we don't have a
need
host. We don't have a host yet. What a great idea! What a great guy to be the host, right?
Yeah, that'd be cool, Nathan Lane. I mean, but remember, critics are going to would have to push it because I get these voters. It's usually whatever the critics are pushing that is going to make them pick up that screener.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah. But I mean, I want to imagine the Oscars are probably rating for see what happens with the strikes before they announce a host because because whether they get an actor to host it or it's someone that's not an actor, which if the strikes aren't resolved, it could be seeing another like Jimmy Fallon hosted Oscars, which I wouldn't take. I mean, I don't get the hate for Jimmy Fallon.
I mean, if they, I don't know, I feel like if they do that, they'll probably just go back to Kimmel.
He was good multiple times.
Yeah. Or just get a whole bunch of writers to host.
Oh God! Come on. Go ahead.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if they get do something like that, like just
get the accountants from Ernst & Young to host.
Depending on like the situation, just get some like either directors or something that are known writers, just so they can have that joke. Like, you know what, the actors are on strike, so they had to get some writers to host the Oscars. But
you get a bunch of reality show hosts to host it. You get Jeff Probst and Carson Daly and all these, and freaking Nick Cannon to host the damn thing.
Please no, I can't stand Nick Cannon. Anyway, I'm not sure how many of these are going to be relevant, but I'm going to go through them all anyway. So the platform prize went to a movie called Dear Yassie or Jassy. I don't know how it's pronounced. Dan, what are your thoughts about Dear Jassy winning the platform prize?
I mean, just your pronunciation of it, Malcolm. I just don't know if I've seen it or if I heard anything about it. And there's no knock on you. It's just doesn't ring a bell with me.
Yeah, it's directed by Tarsum Singh, if that helps. But Lewis, have you heard of Dear Yassie or Jassy?
No, I mean it was probably like one of those like really small movies, and they just decided to give it. I mean, it's called the Platform Prize, so they must have liked it enough that they wanted to highlight it.
Yeah. Best Canadian feature film went to a movie called Solo, which is directed by Sophie Dupriest. Anyone heard of that?
No.
And honestly, I don't think a lot of these is going to be either things you've heard of or but so yeah, that's basically TIFF.
Go ahead, Malcolm. Go ahead.
So it's going to be one of those like with just these winners. Like it's definitely going to be interesting for documentary, especially going back past these sort of previous sort of winners for documentaries, seeing how little it actually had on the Oscars seasons. But yeah, Dan, what were you going to say?
Yeah, is there a foreign language film, a foreign film category?
Not that I can see.
Okay.
Best Canadian feature film. The best international short film went to a movie called Electra.
No, that's fine. I was just curious if like there was a foreign film category, but something that came out this week that I kind of sometimes you keep your ear to the grindstone and you hear things, but apparently this week, Malcolm, this is kind of a side story that I wanted to talk about and see what you guys thought about it. France put their film out there, and it's not Anatomy of a Fall. And this has caused some issues with people in the film critic community because this is the movie that everybody was like raving about coming out of Cannes, and it got really great reviews coming out of Toronto. Yet some way or whatever, France does it again. The same thing they did back with A Portrait of a Lady on Fire. They nominated what was it? It was oh god,
I don't even remember.
no, it's the French. Remember we got the American version with Hugh Jackman and Leah and Emma Stone. Oh god, Les Miserables. I think there was or is it Les Miserables?
Oh yes, it was. It was like a modernized version and all this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and they nominated that instead of Portrait of a Lady on Fire, which everybody was like, what the hell are you doing, France? Well, we got the same situation, Malcolm. They nominated a movie that nobody ever heard of instead of Anatomy of a Fall, which everybody is raving about. So I just kind of wanted to bring that up as a side thing. It was a last-minute deal since we're talking about oh my God! What is with some of these countries nominated? Last year we have India not nominating RRR like a bunch of idiots.
I mean, this tends to happen almost every year. I mean, I think it was Poland. There was also news that got out that they went with the peasants instead of Green Border, and Green Border was getting a lot of really good reviews. And there was talks about that political reasons were why the country didn't pick. I mean, I know there's been some controversy in the past with that. Like I remember they Spain didn't pick Parallel Mothers. Yeah, and then remember Spain. They did not pick Parallel Mothers because of one of the subplots on there. So what France chose was the Taste of Things. Now, to be fair to the Taste of Things, I actually have heard from some people that it's a good movie. Now, from what I'm aware of, Anatomy of a Fall is not 100% French, and some wonder if that might have been played a part of that. On top of that, from what I hear, the Taste of Things is a much warmer movie, and maybe France was thinking, well, we can win them over with a warmer movie here. Now, of course, the debate is, can Anatomy of a Fall get into picture? Because when foreign language films get into picture, they were submitted by their country for international. And we saw what happened where that limited RRR last year. We saw that where Lady of A Portrait on Fire did not show up anywhere at the Oscars. Now, can it be overcome? Yes, it can be overcome. I think only 3 movies in the entire history of the Oscars have been able to overcome that and get into picture. Obviously, we've had some movies that didn't get picked, like Parallel Mothers still got Penelope Cruz in there for actress. I think it also got a tech nomination, if I remember right. Now, to be fair, Anatomy of a Fall is getting pushed by Neon. And Neon is a good a campaigner, and I can see a situation where they're able to get it in there, like they were able to get Triangle Sadness in. But I think people need to not dismiss the possibility that this really hurt this movie's chances of getting to picture. Now, I was thinking, the fact that there is a hard 10 could help it, because I think of certain movies that probably would have gotten in were there a 10, like Ram back in 1980. Yep, well, and like Randy 1985 probably would have got in and that wasn't submitted by Japan. I think it's the Diving Bell and the Butterfly probably would have gotten in, and that wasn't submitted by. I think that was also France that didn't submit that. But I don't want to say it's impossible, especially with Neon backing the movie. compared to RRR was getting pushed by variant films. There's a big gap there
Plus
between that and
Netflix.
Neon.
Netflix.
Well, Netflix to an extent mainly was variant films who was pushing the campaign, but Netflix did have I guess English rights and such. But I would just caution a lot of people who seem to still be confident that this movie can get in, because there's also talk about it getting to screenplay, director, actress. If this could end up being where this movie really took a big hit, because it is so, a lot of these voters will lazily not pick up a foreign language film unless it was submitted by the country. And I think there's a possibility that it could really end up cursing this movie's chances Oscar-wise. But it's also going to be incumbent on the critics to really push this. But even that could have limits, because critics got behind Portrait of a Lady on Fire.
Yes, we did.
Obviously, Parasite was the big thing that year, but they still got behind Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Critics definitely got behind.
A bunch of critics groups, Portrait of a Lady on Fire did.
Yeah, and last year, critics tried to push RRR. RRR got into Critics' Choice. It got into Hollywood Critics.
We got Song in my guild that I'm in, and I know you're in 2 guilds, Lewis.
Yeah. I mean, I think it won Song in both, if I think about it, and it won International Feature. So the critics tried to push RRR.
Oh yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, the thing I just wanted to kind of real quick before we get Malcolm to weigh in on this is, with things jumping out of this year because of the strike, Zone of Interest, Anatomy of a Fall, these foreign films could get into that 10. And like you said earlier, maybe an animated film could get into that 10 to fill some of that void of films jumping out of the race,
Yeah, I mean, at the moment, I have Anatomy of Fall in my predicted 10, but I have at number 10, and the Francis' decision to do this only makes me feel less confident that it could get into the 10. I mean, I can still see, like,
for me though, Lewis, I'm like, oh, screw you, France. I want to see this movie. If I love this movie, I'm gonna freaking push this movie. You want to dick around and not put it as your submission, then if I like it, I'm gonna freaking go all in on it,
Yeah, and again, I just want to add final thought here is that, again, like, to be fair to the Taste of Things, which is what France chose, I have heard good things about the movie. It's not the Taste of Things filmmakers' fault that France made this decision, because there was a controversy that the director of Anatomy of Fall sort of took a shot at the Taste of Things on Instagram. There was a little bit of a controversy with that. But that being said, I'm still excited to check out Anatomy of Fall. I just really fear that this movie got kind of screwed over for its Oscar chances by France making this decision.
Yeah, you never know. All right, Malcolm, I know this is, I don't know what's your thoughts on this?
I mean, the first thing I'll say is, like, in defense of India's decision of Triple R, like, they probably saw that movie was getting a lot of love from everyone, so they thought, oh yeah, it's probably going to maybe get a lot of love and get into some categories. So they probably wanted to push something else in its play, like, because they to get that more love. But with this, like, and see, this is why I think it's stupid that foreign countries can only submit one, because it's just one of those ones, like, maybe France really think this Taste of Things is better than Anatomy of a Fall. I don't know. Like, I'm not a big foreign language guy as it is, but I think it's stupid that submit one foreign film, like, because countries have a lot.
Can I just say something real quick? And you could and I want to hear your opinion on this. I think the Academy, and they do this to some extent, but I think the Academy should just, instead of letting the country pick, they should do a group pick and have multiple levels of knocking it down from such and such, such and such, such and such. Like, they have what's called the short list. But how about have a long list, right? Say 25, and the Academy themselves pick the 25. Then they knock it down to 15. Then they knock it down to 5, like that. Then you could have multiple film from multiple countries if they deem it, the Academy deems it that way. That's my 2 cents on this, and I think that would solve a major problem of a country nominating something if they have a political agenda involved, and not nominating something like something Iran would do. Like Iran didn't nominate something that because of the director having problems with Iran and all this stuff. No bears last year or whatever. And it's like, get that element out of it and let the Academy decide. That's just my opinion. Go ahead, Malcolm.
I mean, it's one of those ones like, well, yes, this controversy will happen regardless of whatever movie any country picks. But I mean, it's just one of those ones that even I think even that one, I think fear could have its own issues as it is. But I think countries should be able to submit maybe more than one, at least submit 3 movies, and then that way it's still up to the Academy. They can vote on what ones they want in this foreign film category. Because I think but I think if they have 3, then it's like then each country has 3 shots essentially, and
Well, some countries aren't going to have 3 movies. Like some of these small countries, like
I mean,
EO, or some of these countries that like what was the one, the Yak in the Classroom? They're not going to have 3 to submit.
Yeah.
They're going to have 1.
I mean, I'm not saying they have to submit a straight 3. Like they can go, well, you can submit up to 3, because it's one of those ones like, I refuse to believe that every country is only making 1 movie a year.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that they are. I'm just saying that maybe they don't have enough that they could nominate that are that worthy.
Well, that's fit, but that's kind of on getting it though, is leaving it up to the countries to only be able to pick 1 movie they think is worthy is leading to this issue that that directors of another movie from that same country is like, oh well, my country doesn't believe in my movies, like and all that. So I mean, it's one of those ones like, if a country could submit up to 3, then just to use France as the example, because that's what we're talking about, is they could submit both The Taste of Things and Anatomy of a Fool, and then those are the movies that they're submitting, and then it's up to the Academy to vote on what ones they want in this category. Whether or not they put in both from the same country, or whether they just put in one. Because they're most likely going to put in the one they want in there, which most likely would be the one they would know, which is probably Anatomy of a Fall, because that's the one that's getting a lot of love and like Sundance and all that. So,
Cannes and Toronto.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's one of those things. Because I think once again, I think this comes down to like, France is not stupid. France is like, well, Anatomy of the Fall is like getting love at Sundance and that. Let's try and get this other movie into the consciousness so that people get a chance to see this, because Anatomy of the Fall has been screened at festivals and stuff, and it's won the prize at Sundance. So that's kind of where I'm at with this. Because but yeah, I think the easiest thing to solve this, so that there isn't this kind of controversy and directors aren't attacking people on Instagram and all that, is if a country has the option to submit up to say 3 because I think 3 is a good number, but it's also a good one to get. But yeah, and it's one of those ones like because like
what if this
um
I want not. What if say all the countries nominate one, right? But because of the critical acclaim of something like Anatomy of a Fall or say Zone of Interest, and those countries like Poland and France don't nominate those, the Academy had the option of putting it into the group and then have the Academy themselves vote on that, something like that. Would that work better?
I mean, I mean, I just want to add the point that I mean, if I believe that when they create the shortlist for the international, that's based off like a certain board. It's not like all the Academy voters are watching these foreign language films.
Yeah,
so I wonder if you create an option that the people who are making the shortlist can say, okay, maybe there's a certain like up to 3 or 5 where we can add this movie that wasn't picked.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, because well, that's kind of the thing is like what I'm thinking is like they see 3 movies and maybe go rank them go 1 to 3 or something like that, and then and maybe like the number ones will automatically go into that shortlist. Then the people who look at the foreign language films look at all the 2s and 3s like that's a really big movie that probably should be in the shortlist as well. I don't know. I think there's a way to fix this. So because was that's the thing we hear this year after year is like that there is always at least one country is like not submitting a movie that they think is a front runner for international feature. But it just doesn't get nominated because it's not the one that was submitted. I think it's just one of those ones like there's a way to stop this controversy, and I don't know if the Academy is willing to do it, or just haven't seen that, and I'm not and just quickly just going back to TIFF I went back through all the last winners of the People's Choice Award, and the winners of the People's Choice Award have all sort of mostly been nominated for Best Picture. So we're probably going to see American Fiction in that race. The only the first year that I could see that it didn't happen was 2011, and none of the 3 things that was that were nominated for People's Choice Awards got nominated in Best Picture at all. And there was, in 2011, the People's Choice Award winner was a movie called Where Do We Go Now? And then the 2 runners up was Starbuck and Our Separation. Our Separation did go on to win the Best Foreign Language Film that year, but none of them were nominated for Best Picture. So I thought that was
Starbuck was rebooted a couple years later as a Vince Vaughn vehicle, and it was a really good movie. It's a Canadian movie.
No, I know what I know what the movie is.
Oh, you do? Okay.
But yeah. But I just thought that was interesting. And actually, that wasn't what I was going back here for.
But yeah, I just thought about that, Malcolm. It's something we should talk about. That was a good topic to bring up real quick. Sometimes when you keep your ear to the grindstone, you might hear some things like that you say to yourself, "Dang it, man!
Yeah,
why does this stuff keep happening like this?"
But yeah, it's one of those ones like at this stage I don't think New Zealand's officially picked the movie, but I'll be disappointed. I'll be surprised if they don't pick up for the international feature film.
Yeah, I'm hoping for your sake. I still haven't even seen last year's one, Maru. I haven't even seen Maru yet, Malcolm. That was the one you were champion last year. I haven't even seen that one, and now we got Uproar this year, and I'm like, dang man, I can't even get last year's big New Zealand movie.
Well, I mean, it's one of the and this happens with a lot of New Zealand movies, or at least I think it happens with a lot of them. It's really hard. Like, I don't know. It's really hard for them to get some kind of streaming or what. I don't know if Miru's streaming anywhere in America yet. It I don't know. But
I did see Lily Lies Low. That's a New Zealand movie. I did see that one.
I mean, it was filmed. I mean, it's one of those. I mean, I don't even know what this is.
Millie Lies Low.
No, I think I've heard of it in passing, but I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it was actually decent. I mean, it's not great, but it was decent.
But anyway, that does bring us to the end of today's episode. We'll be back next week. We're going to be talking about best supporting actor. We were going to do it this week, but we decided with the WGA news, that was going to take a lot of the talk today. So like we'll move it to the week after. But Dan, we can be on you online.
You can find me in my name, Dan Skipbound, or on Facebook, Letterboxd, or Instagram. I'm on X, but X is kind of wonky, so I don't know what to do with that right now as far as that goes. Or like DP Skipbound, or From the Fourth Row, or something like that. But also, I'm a film critic in Orlando, Florida. I write for FromTheFourthRow.com, which you see right there. Also, DisappointmentMedia.com, and I'm working on a 5-part series right now that I'm hoping people have a chance to read, but also watch my companion videos celebrating my life, my exact life from 1974 to present day, which is 50 years of existence. So I'm celebrating by doing reviews of every movie that I pick as my favorite movie of the year, from decade to decade, going 10 years at a time. And then I'm also ranking them all on Letterboxd and doing reviews on there. And then I'm also doing companion videos with some friends of mine, just to see if their movies match up with my movies during that 10-year span. So the companion videos are coming out every 2 months, and I got one coming out October 20th, the same day as Killers of the Flower Moon, ironically enough. And so I've had some buddies do that with me. Just celebrating my life in film in a way, this special 5-part project. But also I've been on Rank 'em a few times over the last month or so, which is fun. I've been on Picture This with our friends Dylan and Chad, who've come on here a few times, where we revisit the Academy Awards. And I've done all the Godfather years. So we did 72, 74, and 90. Also, I did 1980 with them. Also, I've been doing some other stuff on the Hero Network, the Something Hero Network with our buddies Jordan and Austin. I'm doing a lot. Coming up this Friday, we're doing a Westerns bracket, which, we're looking for one more person for that Westerns bracket. If somebody out there listening wants to be on the Westerns bracket right now, because that would be a fun one to, do 64 Westerns and narrow it down to one. But every week we're going to go weekly starting next week, I believe Malcolm said. So I believe the 2nd of October, we're going to be back here, which is next week. For Gone with It, we're going to do every week from now on, all the way through to the Oscars. Hopefully, we have a lot to talk about. We get a lot of guests on here and stuff, so look forward to talking about this stuff every week.
Louis, we can people on you online.
You can find all my stuff just MendesMovieReport.com. But if anyone wants to find me on social media, I'm on Facebook, Instagram, Threads, Twitter /X, Letterboxd. Just search Mendes Movie RPT, and that's where everyone can find me.
And you can find me on TIFF Productions hosting Rankum every Sunday next week we're doing top 12 Robert Rodriguez movies. And you can also find me hosting Full Metal singles over on the Full Metal channel. I promise I'll have something dropping this week. I've kind of forgotten to upload them the past few weeks, but you can find me all over the place. I'm around, but most of all, just keep watching movies. And yeah,